Substances on Earth. How many elements on the periodic table do you recognize? Many elements occur naturally. They can be found rather easily on Earth. For example, the lead in a drawing pencil is pure carbon. Carbon is element 6, also known by its symbol C. Charcoal is another form of carbon and is also a good drawing tool. Humans dig into rocks for natural resources such as gold, 79 AU, silver, 47 AG, iron, 26 Fe, and aluminum, 13 Al. You've probably encountered these metals, perhaps in the form of a gold ring, silver earrings, a cast iron skillet, or aluminum foil. Carbon and metals are not the only commonly found pure elements. A glowing sign in a store window might hold neon gas. Neon, Ne, is element 10. In a hospital, you might have noticed a tank with tubes to provide oxygen to patients. Oxygen O is element 8. Flip to page 14. Few elements are found in liquid form on Earth. One liquid element is mercury, 80Hg. It is the silver liquid used in old thermometers and barometers. What about everything else around you? The paper this article is printed on, the white substances you tested in class, the toothpaste you used this morning. What are those made of? They are made of elements, like everything else in the universe. But they are not made of just one element. Like the pencil, lead, an iron skillet, or neon gas, they are a combination of several elements that form new substances. You already identified the elements that make up the substances you used in class. They include sodium chloride, sodium and chlorine, calcium carbonate, calcium, carbon, and oxygen, and magnesium sulfate, magnesium, sulfur, and oxygen. Many substances are made of more than one element. For example, glass is made of silicon and oxygen, steel is made of iron and chromium, and brass is made of copper and zinc. Answer the questions number 1 and 2 on your reading paper. Press pause and continue when you're ready. Elements in the universe. All across the universe, huge stars explode and send giant clouds of gas and dust into space. About 5 billion years ago, in a region that would become the solar system, gravity pulled some of that gas and dust together. The small bits combined to become larger and larger over many millions of years, finally forming the sun, the planets, and everything on them. Everything in the world, including you, is made of stardust. What was that stardust made of? Elements. Particles of all 90 naturally occurring elements flew around in that space cloud. And when Earth formed, all 90 of those elements became part of Earth. Turn to page 16. Elements in the sun. Our star, the sun, has mass and occupies space. It is matter. All matter is made of elements. The sun is no exception. If you could separate the sun's elements and organize them in a pie chart, the wedge of hydrogen would be the largest. The sun is about 75% hydrogen by mass. The next largest wedge would be helium. The sun is about 23% helium. The next three elements are very small wedges: 0.9% oxygen, 0.3% carbon, and 0.1% nitrogen. The sun is mostly hydrogen and helium with small amounts of other elements. Press pause and answer questions 3 and 4 on your reading checklist. Now make sure you're on page 17. Earth elements. The planet we live on, Earth, is made of all 90 naturally occurring elements, but the elements are not equally abundant. Some elements are common while others are extremely rare. Those elements in the periodic table that you have never heard of are the rare ones. Earth and the sun have different amounts of the elements. The most abundant element on Earth is iron, 35%. The massive core of the planet is mostly iron. Next are oxygen, 28%, magnesium, 17%, and silicon, 13%. These three elements are the main elements in minerals and rocks. They also make up the largest part of the planet, two outer layers called the mantle and the crust. Turn to page 18. The other major elements that make up Earth are nickel, 2.5%, sulfur, 2.7%, calcium, 0.6%, and aluminum, 0.4%. The remaining 82 elements together make up a tiny 0.6% of Earth. It might seem that Earth is a pretty simple place. It is made mostly out of a dozen or so elements. But Earth's composition is not simple. It is not the number of elements that determines how complex things are. It is the ways the elements combine to make different substances. These few elements can combine to make millions of different materials. That's where the wonderful variety of Earth comes from. Turn to page 19. Elements in the ocean. The ocean covers almost 3/4 of the Earth's surface, and the ocean is deep. That adds up to a lot of water. Water, H2O, is made of two elements, hydrogen and oxygen. For this reason, the ocean is 85% oxygen and 11% hydrogen by weight. Seawater is salty because it contains a lot of other elements. The most common salt is sodium chloride, NaCl. As a result, chlorine, 2%, is the third most abundant element in the sea, and sodium, 1%, is the fourth most abundant. Many other kinds of salt are dissolved in the sea, too. All 86 of the other elements found on Earth are in the sea as well. For billions of years, water has been washing across the land, flowing into rivers, and making its way to the sea. All of the elements dissolved by water on land end up in Earth's ocean. That means there is actually some gold in seawater, but the amount of gold is so small that it wouldn't be worth the expense to get it out. Press pause and answer questions 5 and 6 on your reading checklist. When you're ready, turn to page 20. Elements in the sky. The atmosphere surrounding Earth is matter in its gas phase. Matter is made of elements. What elements are in the atmosphere? The atmosphere is mostly nitrogen, 78%. The second most abundant element is oxygen, 21%. The third most abundant element is the noble gas argon. Less than 1% of the atmosphere is argon. The other elements in the air are present in small quantities. Water in the air has the element hydrogen. Carbon dioxide gas in the air has the element carbon. Smoke from fires and exhaust from industries and motor vehicles add to the air. Some exhaust adds carbon dioxide to the atmosphere, which affects Earth's climate. Other exhaust contains elements that can damage plants and animals. Mercury, lead, and some substances containing sulfur and nitrogen can be health hazards. Turn to page 21. Elements in you. You are made of elements in the periodic table. How many of the 90 elements do you think it takes to make a human? You probably have a trace amount of every element in your body. That is because elements are found everywhere, including our air, water, and food. For instance, helium in the air in tiny amounts. Small amounts of helium enter our bodies when we breathe. We do not need helium to survive, but it appears in our bodies anyway. Other elements are essential for life. We need tiny amounts of some elements, like chlorine and iodine, to stay healthy, but we need large amounts of others, such as carbon and oxygen. Turn to page 22. The human body is about 75% water. Much of the rest of the mass of your body is made from the element carbon combined with other elements. Carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen combine to form carbohydrates, sugars and starches, lipids, oils, fats, and waxes, and proteins. Proteins also contain nitrogen. Skin, muscle, fat, and organs are made of carbohydrates, lipids, and proteins. The tough, rigid parts of the body, like teeth, bones, and cartilage, are rich in the element calcium. Blood contains a lot of iron. Potassium and sodium are needed for nerve and brain function. Quite a few elements make up our bodies, but when you add it all up by mass, about 98.5% of the human body is composed of only 6 elements. They are oxygen, carbon, hydrogen, nitrogen, calcium, and phosphorus. The remaining 1.5% is small amounts of a lot of different elements. Turn to page 23. Most living organisms are chemically very similar to humans, so it is pretty safe to say that all life is based on the same 6 elements. Trees and other plants are mostly carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen, just like humans. So are the birds, insects, and spiders living in and among the plants. And anything we use that comes from organisms, such as water, leather, paper, cotton, fabrics, plastics, food, and fuel, is also made of these elements. So, what elements are found in the universe? The answer is all of them. And which elements are abundant? Only a few. Common matter is made mostly of just a handful of elements. Go to your reading checklist and answer questions 7 and 8. When you are done with questions 7 and 8, complete the post reading, which is questions 9 and 10.